You have to drag that back down.
Yeah.
Google Slides really needs to fix this bit.
Okay, you see it?
Cross.
Yep, which way?
That one?
Ah, sweet.
Then you can make that one big again.
Oh, no.
There
Okay.
you go.
Okay, cool. Okay, my name's Carl, and I'm just going to talk about a project I'm doing at home, and I kind of think it's relatively interesting to kind of what we do here. It's mainly about the new UX sort of stuff that's happening now. So, yep. So, okay. So, So this talk is about the changes that's happening to user experience. So 10 years ago, we went through the same sort of transition with touch, and 5 years ago, if you told me that we'd be yelling out commands and then the things would be happening, I'd say you're crazy. It's not really. I wouldn't have really thought about it 5 years ago with the kind of things we've got now. But just like the first touch apps, it's natural language still has to find its place in society. My first experience with conversational applications were I found them a little bit unintuitive, and you feel like you have to learn how to talk to the device again. Also, it's hard to find out what options you actually have available. Just like you might say there's natural language apps out now, but they've still got a little bit too mature. They're still kind of getting there. So just like with mobile devices or like touch devices, they didn't really become usable until we had like gestures and multi-touch and pressure and all those sorts of things that became a lot more usable. So my first experience with natural language was using a device called Sensibo. It's a IR blaster that's specified for air conditioning units to make your dumb air conditioning unit smart. It's got Google Home Assistant, and it was pretty cool. Like you could say on, off, on, off. And for the first week, it was insane. Like it was really cool. But after a while, I felt like I could do better. So on the left-hand side, that's the Google Home dialog. So when you actually talk to Google Home and you've got a smart device with the screen, it'll show you this prompt. But also through voice, you can say turn on the device, turn off the device, change the temperature, and that all works. I did have some trouble with using the mode, and I think it's kind of my accent, so it didn't sort of work. But yeah, on the right is the rest of the functionality is on an app that you have to install on your device. And I don't really like having to switch between apps to do any sort of task. It doesn't feel good. So I thought I could do better. I asked myself, why do I have to use two apps to achieve this functionality? Why can't I just always talk to the device or Google Home? Why does my wife ask me to talk to Google Home? Like, it's a talk thing. She can talk to it as well. Why can't my AC just figure out the right sort of temperature? Like, they've been around for years, man. AC is not a new thing. It's kind of pretty old. Like, why isn't it smart already? So I thought about making a solution, and my solution was going to use the Sensibo SDK, the Firebase, TensorFlow.js, Actions on Google, and Dialogflow. So I was lucky enough when I was looking at buying a device, I was looking for one that had an SDK because I knew at some point I'd want to play. And Sensibo does have a nice REST SDK, and it kind of lets you talk to the device, set the settings, and also like monitor environmental stuff. So firstly, with Firebase, I wanted to start collecting the data that the device had, so what the current state was, and just sort of monitor it so that I could use this for training data later for my machine learning. Also, I was going to be using Cloud the functions in Firebase for Dialogflow in the Google Home, as well as like an Angular app, so I can monitor that data coming in and make sure it's sort of what I want and expect. So I believe that Firebase was a really good platform to do this. It like really makes us get up and running really fast. So I wanted to create a model that could regulate the temperature of my room or the house, and so control the fan, turn the fan on, off, and change it from heating to cooling and all that sort of stuff, and try to figure out what the best temperature was for the house. So like if it's 35 degrees outside, it'd be nice to come into the house and it was 18 degrees, but then after a couple of hours, change it to 21 because it would just start getting too cold. And could I actually make something that would actually do that? Also, like if it's 21 degrees but 80% humidity, could it actually figure out that the humidity is too high and actually lower that, so it's actually a bit more comfortable? Yeah, so after a couple of iterations, I kind of came up with this sort of model design. It's just pretty simple. It's got two outputs, a couple of inputs. I did try using kind of classic sequential one that just has one output. but it didn't really learn very well. It took quite a few iterations to actually get sort of anything meaningful out of it. But my next problem was, this was a new project and I didn't have data, so I couldn't train my model. So I was thinking about some stuff, and I've been reading about the genetic algorithm for training machine learning. And so so what they do in there is they use it for like games in there, and so the games learn how to play and win, and so they rate each model on a score. And so I reckon I could score my models for how well they actually adjusted the temperature and kept the temperature right. So it seemed possible, and the genetic algorithm differs from other kind of machine learning because it doesn't use backpropagation or labeled data, so you don't have to have that information up front. You just have to know how to score its results and actually tell it how good it is. And so basically you have a population, which is all your models, and so you have this big thing of all these random models. They have no sort of logic. And then you kind of rate the best ones with the score after they've done their processing. Then from those you kind of get the best ones, you mix them up, and then you repeat the process. You generate a whole lot more models from those ones that were really good and continue. And this actually worked really well and was able to achieve quite a good model within 3 to 5 iterations, and actually really did work far better than I expected. It was pretty cool. So that's sort of the kind of UI bit. So after that, I wanted to improve on the current Google Home system that Sensibot had, because it was missing a lot of functionality. I had a look at the supported device lists and kind of what devices that you say they are for Google Home, and there's like air conditioning, fans, and thermostat. Yeah, thermostat. And yeah, so I kind of started playing around, and then kind of that's where I had a bit of a wall. Like things didn't quite work as I expected. Like when I did the UI to make it an air conditioner, it didn't really give you that UI that you used to get in like the previous screens. So it was kind of like a little bit thing, and some of the modes and traits didn't quite work as I expected. So I thought I can still achieve this and I can enhance it a bit more. So I went to Dialogflow. So Dialogflow is a natural language kind of conversational service. It's pretty insane. Like it's all powered by machine learning. It's yeah, really cool. And so yeah, that's it. So yeah, after trying to fail with it, I actually talked to my wife, and I created a dialogue with her talking about pretending like on the air conditioner, what does she want from the air conditioner, and we kind of made this flow up. And because yeah, it actually helped me program the dialogue flow a lot better, because when I was just randomly just writing code like a developer, it just sort of really didn't work, and it wasn't really intuitive, or the conversation didn't flow, and yeah, it wasn't cool at all. So I really figured out that even voice is a user experience, and it really has to be treated like you do any sort of layout and any sort of kind of normal sort of like web development or application development. You really need to understand what your user wants and how to get them there as quick as you can. Yeah, so yep. And yeah, so once I'd done the kind of conversation and got that flowing really well, I actually put in hints, and the hints are in forms of suggestions, lists, and carousels, which when the user has a device that has a screen, they will get prompted with these sorts of UI sort of hints. And one other thing I found out which is pretty cool is TensorFlow.js can actually run in Firebase functions. So when these functions are getting called to show the carousel, I can actually order or show the most appropriate hints based on like maybe the time of day or the current device settings or temperature or the user, and actually then really personalize this experience to the person. So say you generally turn off your device at 10, it can actually 10 o'clock, it could actually learn that and actually give you that as your first option, actually suggest to you, would you like to turn your AC off now? So I found that really cool. Yeah, and so if all of this stuff works that I've talked about, what should I experience? And the result is nothing. I don't want to deal with my air conditioning unit, but if I do need to do it, then I can have a conversation, I can just talk to it. And I think that's really nice, and it just stops this bloat in my life of having so many apps and so many toys that I just don't need to think about this anymore. And I think that's a really important thing, and that is user experience as well. So yeah, so from this I've really learned that like yeah, user experience is not just the classic sort of like a screen sort of thing. It's actually yeah, a whole conversation and interaction, how we interact with stuff, and it kind of opened my eyes to a bit more of like how we should be kind of working with apps, and what sort of tasks actually form themselves really well to being sort of done through voice. And also I found that TensorFlow, as well as just being like a really good thing for doing massive machine learning and really awesome sort of projects, it can also be really cool for personalisation, like actually making engaging apps and making the user feel like they're actually more, and not just like a profile where you select the drop down to say that you're in Australia or that sort of stuff. You can actually learn behaviour and actually personalise things really well. Yeah, and that's
Before we have a break, does anybody have any questions for Carl? The back there?
Oh.
Yell out.
Hey, with your TensorFlow models, like, did you train it on your laptop, like, or did you use some service in the cloud?
Yeah, it's just on my laptop.
Oh yeah, how long did that take?
Let's see, I'll show you. Can I press the refresh? Oh god. Is it done? So, if I press the right button, there you go. So that's done one iteration, and then yeah. So kind of I make it as a game, and like what's happening here is I'm trying to make the best lines are the ones that are like learning, and so kind of the best results are the ones that get the highest score are the ones in colour, and they'll be used for the next generation to then go on and be like the parents of the next models. So actually, yeah, you can actually see it's getting that wavy line, but it's actually sort of adjusting already, and it learns pretty quickly. And did I click the button? Yeah, but you can actually run this like all through 5-ace functions, like so it's actually all JavaScript, and you can hijack it and actually use it for some cool stuff. And yeah, it's pretty quick. Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, up here.
Yep.
How do you find that Google Home varies from something like, say, Alexa,
Yeah.
which seems to be very kind of state machine type approach to things? And in particular, how do you find that the interface, the UI, has to change to match what voice can do, rather than what you might have on the screen see?
I think when I was working at this, I've only had the experience with Google Home, but when I was working at this, I was actually trying to do it as a speech first thing. So actually thinking, what do I want? What conversations do I want to have to achieve a result? And they're kind of more like tasks that I don't know, I don't care so much about. Like, I don't, like finding the remote. Like sometimes you really want to find the remote, but sometimes you just don't care and you just wait and change the channel or turn on the air conditioning later. So I think that's where voice is a lot nicer. We can just have these general sort of conversations and do stuff. But the flow of information I found was, good. I think I answered. Did I answer the question?
Basically, my kind of
Sorry.
learning to kind of do this was that you start off with turning on the air conditioner, turning
Yep.
off the air conditioner,
Yeah,
setting
yeah.
the temperature. But
Yeah.
in the end, you work out you don't really want that. You want make this nice and comfortable
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Be smart about it, and I don't want to have to talk to you again.
Yes. Exactly.
So you kind of move away from what is the UI that you get for an app
Yep.
towards something which is end state.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to achieve as well. I don't want to talk to the kind of my AC. I want it to actually figure out these things, but I do occasionally want to know the status. Like, why does it feel muggy in here? And then you can ask that with the humidity, or so it's sort of, I think voice is really nice complementary, and it offers that sort of service, and you kind of, I guess it's how you perceive what your intent is. I guess it does change a little bit from role to role, or kind of what you're trying to do out of it, but it is a little bit, it's an emerging technology. It's not fully complete yet, and there's going to be better stories coming up, and things are going to get more refined and polished, and we're going to find different ways to interact that we didn't really think of before, and that's kind of the cool part about it. Like when you had the first touch devices sucked, right? Like when you scrolled, they always scrolled at the same speed no matter how fast you moved, and after a while these adapted because this became the norm and people got used to it. And so this is probably going to be similar. It's going to become the norm. People are going to accept it, becomes like the default, and things will add on and it's become more rounded, more polished, and just you wonder why it was never there, sort of thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl. So stop right now. Come and grab some more.